Hello friends, good morning and welcome to the EduSat Network. Our topic of discussion today is Hindi Cinema and Globalization. Friends, we have already talked about this in the previous lecture. That was part 1 and this will be a continuation from yesterday. We shall talk more about the topic and subject at length, and this is part of our series on Hindi cinema, friends. And for this discussion and lecture we have with us in our studio Dr. Manoj Sharma, Assistant Professor, Department of History, Kirodimal College, University of Delhi. Sir, as a PhD, just to let you know, friends, is on neorealism in Indian cinema, 1944 to 69. And with this introduction, I would like to welcome sir. Thank you so much, sir, for coming.
A very good morning to all the viewers. Yesterday we talked about Hindi Cinema and Globalization Part 1, in that sense that we talked about certain themes of 1920s, 30s and 40s in Indian Hindi cinema specifically, and how during 30s and 1940s what we see is that many of the films, they were being sent to international film festivals, and how they were received in the international film festivals, and how they were also awarded certain films. And in 15, with the arrival of Satyajit Ray and Appu trilogy, how Indian cinema was recognized at world level in different countries. This is what we discussed yesterday. And at the same time, how Hindi cinema has become popular in the recent period, specifically 1990s and afterwards with the arrival of globalization. As the kind of changes which came in the economy, the kind of structural changes which were made in the Indian economy. Yesterday we left our discussion at the issue of piracy, that how issue of piracy is a major revenue loss for the distributors, and filmmaking, as we all of us know, is a very costly venture, because crores and crores of rupees are involved. We hear nowadays quite often that this film has been made with a budget of this many crores, and there are films which are clubbed in that sense that this is a 100 crore club, 200 crore club, and Dhoom 3 which grossed more than 500 crore if we keep the collections, the Indian collections as well as the overseas collections. And PK is considered to be a film which has in a way crossed the records which were set by Dhoom 3. So in this context, when filmmaking itself is a costly venture and the focus is on earning as much as revenue as possible, so and in the age of information technology, when we have more access to internet and things are traveling comparatively more faster, then the issue of piracy is central to filmmakers, and they are making concerted efforts that this piracy of films can be stopped. Government has also legislated on these issues and taken certain measures because it is considered to be an illegal activity. When people, those who are caught, can be punished according to the kind of laws which are there in our country. At the same time, if the release gap of the VCDs and DVDs which are released by the filmmakers of their own films, if it is lessened, then viewers or spectators, they can see the film in original print that way at a comparatively lesser time. And moreover, these VCDs and DVDs are priced very less, so that they have easy access to people in that way. So these are the efforts which have been undertaken. In today's films, what we see is that the portrayal of hero has also undergone change. Earlier, the heroes, they used to be good guys most of the time. There was no negative images of the heroes. But today's protagonists, they are not reluctant in that sense that they are ready to depict the shade of greys, as we can see in many of the films, Bazigar, Darar, Dar, etc., in which Shah Rukh Khan plays a role of a psychotic lover, or a terrorist played by Amir Khan in Fana, and a thief played by Amir Khan in Dhoom 3. So these kind of changes which are taking place, that heroes are not reluctant to essay roles which are not all that conventional when we keep in mind the earlier cinema. At the same time, one of the evident reasons is the audience changed opinion. Audience has become comparatively much more mature in that sense, and they are ready to accept those film stars, those who are doing all these kind of unconventional roles. And this kind of aspect has given some kind of fresh impetus to filmmaking as well, because the filmmakers now they are ready, as well as they have these kind of resources at their disposal, that they can take the conventional heroes in different roles, and this has brought some kind of fresh energy to the cinema. At the same time, what we see is the emergence of corporate and their active participation in the film business. Earlier, what we see, when the star system came in 1940s, before that we had a studio system. In the studio system, film stars were on the payrolls of the big studios. But after that, when star system came, this kind of freelancing in terms of films that was being done, and heroines and music directors and directors, they were taken by the producers, producer of the film, and in terms of freelancing, and star system became popular. And with the emergence of the corporates in the recent times, big film studios, they have come up. Now they are hiring big film stars also, as well as they are venturing into smaller films as well. In 2004, Yash Raj Films, which is one of the important and big banners of Hindi films, they released a film called Veer Zara in 2004, and Yash Raj Films, it became YRF. UTV Motion Pictures was another big banner which came during this particular period. In this context, we can also talk about the issue of advertising, because advertising has come to play an important role for these firms, and advertising is seen so that they can sell their products more in the market. They can create some kind of awareness among the consumers about their products. So global advertising agencies across the world, they are consolidating in some way. And this is also happening in the media industry, that in media industry many they are having some kind of tie-ups with the advertising concerns. And when entertainment and media conglomerates, when they produce a film, so they guarantee that film showings are there on the pay cable television. They at the same time produce and they sell the soundtracks which are based on the films, as well as the CDs, DVDs, comics, books which are based on these films, and there are other merchandise which are associated with the films. They are also taken into account. So in this way, what we see is filmmaking is which has been taken up by the corporates. So all these kind of changes are coming in this context. At the same time, the changes have come in the context of film finance as well. Several Hindi films, they are being now financed by the structured sources. Earlier there were no structured sources for the film finance. Even cinema was not recognized as an industry till 1987. So that way, the kind of money which was involved in the filmmaking, it was considered to be the black money. But now APO funds, institutional bank loans, private equity, venture capital, and various other private sources which are coming through investment vehicles and companies, they are coming to finance the films, which is a healthy aspect when we see that a lot of people, those who were not coming into the film medium earlier, now they are ready to invest their money in this. At the same time, this kind of race is led by the media and entertainment companies, and these media and entertainment companies, they are raising their money through the IPOs, and a number of high net worth individuals, those who have a lot of money to invest, they also are coming to invest their money. Another important aspect which is associated within the context of finance is the crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is realized through the sources by which the filmmakers, they are asking the people or the masses to fund their films through social media, and people, they get some kind of share in the collections. When the film becomes profitable, they get the kind of profit sharing which is there, and at the same time they are recognized as co-producers. They are seen as the co-producers in the film. This is one of the important and healthy aspects of cinema in recent times. Oned's film I Am, which was released and it was an awarded film also, it won 2 national awards. It was a crowd-funded film, which we see that Oned says that 400 investors were there in the film, and they were being acknowledged also as the co-producers of the film, and through this they were able to collect around 3 crore rupees. So, this kind of funding, crowdfunding is a novel kind of idea in terms of filmmaking in recent times, and some of the filmmakers, those who have some kind of good reputation in the market, as they have earlier done good cinema. So, with their reputation they are able to collect that kind of money as well. At the same time, it is a safe option from the perspective that it reduces the investment risks. The people, those who are investing money, their risk is being shared because a number of people, they are being involved in the aspect of filmmaking. So, this is another aspect which has been recently seen in terms of film finance. Another important development is the coming of corporate in finance. One of the important companies, which is an important company in Hollywood as well, is the Reliance Big Pictures of Anil Ambani, which has invested around $325 million US, and they have also given some kind of a 50% stake in DreamWorks, which is owned by Steven Spielberg. And this is one company which has entered into partnerships, development partnerships with numerous production houses in US, and they have also acquired a number of cinema halls in US, and Indian films, especially Hindi films, they are being exhibited in US and other parts of the world, because these films are quite popular within the Indian diaspora. So, these kind of with these kind of changes in terms of crowdfunding, in terms of coming of corporates in finance, what we see is that there is a fresh lease of investment for the Hindi films in recent times. Some of the changes have also come in the context of distribution of films as well. Apart from finance, a number of changes have come in the context of distribution. Recent cinema in India that has been fascinated the wealthy middle class in the key cities, but they are also aimed at the NRI audience, the non-resident Indian audience, which is living in US as well as UK and other parts of the world. So, what we see is that NRI market is not all that big when you compare it with the Indian spectators, but what we see is that the ticket prices in these countries, they are comparatively very high. So, from that perspective, we can see that Indian films in overseas markets, they are able to garner a lot of money in that context. When these films, they are being released in USA and America and UK and in other parts of the world, which is a developed world, where the ticket prices are comparatively higher. So, that way they are able to collect good revenues, and in this way films, they become comparatively more profitable. I will like to cite an example of a film Kabhi, Khushi, Kabhie, Gham, K3G. So, you can see that how this abbreviated form, it became quite popular, that it became K3G, and Kuch Kuch Hota Hai was also abbreviated, or DDLJ, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge. So, all these kind of abbreviated forms of these films, they became quite popular during this particular period, because the title of the films were comparatively bigger. So, what we see, that you can see on the screen as well, in the on the screen you can see that around 25 crore rupees they were earned by this film in the overseas market, and Indian box office 25 crore rupees they were earned. And how it became a hit in this context, that it appealed to the wealthy section of the Indian society. So, this film became quite popular. Then another important aspect is in terms of global marketing. Global marketing in the sense that entertainment basically can be seen in the successful distribution of blockbuster films which were dubbed in Hindi, like Jurassic Park, Speed, Titanic, Avatar, and even a children's film called Aladdin. So, what we see is that many of the big Hollywood films, they were being dubbed in Hindi, and how they were able to gross huge revenues from Indian markets. So, similarly, some of the Indian films, they were also shown with English subtitles, or they were dubbed in English or other languages, maybe in the regional languages in India, or in other languages where these films, they were being shown, either in Russia or China or Southeast Asia or other parts of the world. So, in this way Indian films, they were being they were able to secure a lot of revenue in this context. Another category of films is the low budget films, and some of the filmmakers they have given some kind of importance to these films as well, because these kind of films they are made for the metropolitan cities. As we discussed yesterday, that the arrival of multiplexes they provided the filmmakers with an opportunity, that how with the multiplexes these filmmakers they could exhibit the target specific films which were made for these audiences. And some of the crossover films which were made in English, they were targeted at the prosperous city inhabitants and the worldwide NRI markets where these films they were exhibited. Another important company, Percept Pictures, they produced a film called Makdi with less than a budget of 1 crore, and it became a huge hit, and it collected more than that. It was a profitable venture. So, small budget films with slick production, and when they keep the fixed time schedules, when they pay attention to the details, they are able to finish the product in a record time. They are able to control the losses or the kind of investment. They are able to keep the production cost at a lower level, because of which when we see that these low budget films, they become quite successful in terms of earning money. Subhash Ghai, who was a maker of a number of huge films, including Tal, which he made, which was quite popular and garnered a lot of revenue. But what we see is that he also made Joggers Park, which was comparatively a smaller film in terms of its budget. And so this kind of thing, in which diverse kind of investments are being made by the filmmakers, so that they are able to diversify the kind of money which they have. They are not trying to lock their money in big investments, big films which are requiring huge investments. So that way we see that many of the filmmakers, apart from him also recently Karan Johar, then YRF, Yash Raj Films, UTV, they are producing certain films which are low budget in nature, so that at the same time they are producing 5 to 10 films at the same time, keeping in mind the different directors, different cast, so that they are able to diversify the kind of finances which they have with them. At the same time, I would like to talk about the changes in the exhibition and the consumption of films, that how these films they are being exhibited and how they are being consumed by the people, those who are watching these films. What we see specifically in 1990s, that NRI audience, which is the non-resident Indian audience, they are seen as some sort of a necessary cultural signifier, and they are popularizing a kind of variety of capital driven phenomena in India, especially basketball, Valentine's Day, all these kind of things. They became quite popular in the new cultural commodities in the Indian bazaars or markets. And what we see is the greeting card industry became quite popular in late 90s. Basketball as a game became, which was very popular in USA, became quite popular and was shown in some of the films like Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. Valentine's Day, which was not an Indian tradition that way, was also celebrated in many of the films and became quite popular, keeping in mind the kind of youth of today. And some scholars they have called that it is the cocoa colonization. Cocoa colonization in the sense that Coca-Cola, Pepsi, etc., the huge giants of cold drinks, these people, they are trying to colonize the various markets of developing countries, including India, and the students and the young generations of today, they are not trying to have a lemon drink or a shikanji, but they are more interested in having a Coke, because it is some kind of a style statement. So all these kind of things, and how they are becoming captive to these companies. At the same time, the issue of McDonaldization, that how the focus of the youth is on pizzas and burgers, and the McDonaldization in the context that the homogeneous taste and preferences of people that is focused upon. The popular cinema, what we see, you can see on the slide as well. You can see that the popular cinema it popularized the provincial and parochial institutions or Indian customs like Karwa Chauth and Dandiya. So these kind of festivals, they were popular in small regions earlier. But how these small festivals like Karwa Chauth and Dandiya etc., they were being popularized in the pan-Indian audiences, and they were converted into some kind of a cultural capital. So the greeting card industry, it also came at this time, and how the marketing of cards that was being done, and these kind of changes which we can see during this particular period. So the impact of popular cinema can be seen in the context of certain films, like if you see DDLJ, Dulwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, in which the issue of Karwa Chauth has been exhibited and it is being celebrated, and it is given some kind of prominence. And Karwa Chauth itself is a regressive kind of festival in India. It is very gender regressive, that a woman has to keep fast for the entire day. She does not have to take any kind of water or any kind of eatables during the day. So it is a regressive kind of a festival which was made quite popular. And now what we see in recent times, that not it is a festival for the married women, but even the unmarried girls, they are keeping the fast nowadays for their boyfriends etc. So these kind of changes which we can see in Indian cinema context. And the consumerist forces, they are very active in redefining these kind of regional traditions, that the regressive rituals like Karwa Chauth, they are advertised in such manner and they are transformed into national festivals. And many women, those who might be progressive as well, they are embracing these kind of traditions which were not part of their culture. So a custom of sacrifice in a way is transformed into a festival of consumption, where so many companies, they are offering so many discounts during Karwa Chauth, and at the same time they are announcing some kind of dinners in which people, they are given special rates. At the same time, husbands, they have to pacify their wives in that sense, in that context. One of the columnists in Times of India, Santosh Desai, he argues that the role of husband has also changed in these festivals, that earlier he was a passive spectator, but now who was a superior receiver of attention. Now he is feeling some sort of a guilty person, some sort of an unsure sympathizer in that way, and sometimes he is also observing fast. He is trying to demonstrate some sort of a solidarity, or either he is purchasing gift so that he can tone down the kind of guilt which he has because the wife is keeping fast. So these kind of customs are getting huge proportions and leading all kinds of consumptions in Indian cinema. At the same time, the role of cinema and television is, which we can see, that these kind of films, they are being exhibited on television time and again. And Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, which was made in 1995, and it has been reported that this film is so popular that it is running in one of the cinema halls of Bombay even now, even after 20 years of release. So this film became so popular. And television, through its soap opera, is also engaged in festivals on screen, because all the people, those who are associated with the daily soaps on television, they are engaged in preparation of one festival or another. So the critics of such soap opera, they argue that in Indian households you will not find that people are engaged only in preparation of all such kind of festivals. They have other things to do as well. But what we see on television is that people, even in normal life, they are wearing such kind of colorful clothes, they are ready all the time, even when they are sleeping. So they propagate and such kind of ideals which we generally don't find in the real life. And these kind of propagations are propagating commercialization as well, that the saris or suits etc., which are worn by the TV stars, because they are comparatively cheaper, they are coming to the markets, and people, they are purchasing these products keeping in mind that this particular product or sari or suit etc. was worn by a particular TV actress in this particular soap opera or the television series. So these kind of changes can also be seen in terms of films. Another important aspect which I would like to talk about is the product placement. Product placement or the brand placement is also gaining momentum these days, because mass markets can be reached through this popular visual medium. Power of the film stars is quite strong, as we can see, and they also lend some kind of credibility to the brands, or they attest and they create some kind of positive associations. As we can see that Shah Rukh Khan is associated with Tag Heuer as well as Centro Car, or when you see that Salman Khan is endorsing some kind of cold drink, or Akshay Kumar is endorsing some kind of product, or Amitabh Bachchan is associated with Reed and Taylor. So all these kind of film stars, they lend some kind of credibility to these products, and these products are not only advertised in the advertisements which we see on television, but they are also placed in the films. That a number of films they exhibit, a number of advertisements which are placed, and they have a lot of repeat value as well, because these films are shown on television time and again. So they create more impact than traditional advertising in that sense, and when consumers or the people, those who see these films time and again on television, they also try to associate it with the brands which are shown in them. And at the same time, these films are shown across the world as well, and the various cinema halls where so many people, they get acquainted with the brand. In the context of the Indian middle class, I would like to talk about Pawan Varma, who has written a book called The Great Indian Middle Class, and he defines this class as a segment which suddenly shot to prominence with the activation of the liberalization package in 1991, and which tailored to make India player in the globalized economy for its ability to consume. So Varma identifies this class as a nouveau rich, a new rich class, and which had more disposable incomes at their service because of the expanding economy. Their incomes, they had increased exponentially, and with this increased income, they did not know where to invest this kind of money, and they were highly influenced by the global culture of USA and the developed world of the Europeans, and this way they also tried to change their own lifestyle, and this kind of change in the lifestyle was possible because they had this kind of money at their disposal. Because in 1990s, what we see is that some of the professionals, they grew at the expense of others, because some people, they became rich because their salaries increased, and this has been criticized on the ground that there are others, those who were not able to garner the kind of benefits which came with globalization. So Varma's harsh critique of this middle class can be seen in terms of the rapid dissociation of this middle class. The people, those who became the middle class, they were guided by the self-interest and their material well-being, and now they were not able to connect with the people, those who were living in the extreme poverty, and this class, they were not ready to come to the electoral processes of democracy, and they in a way were showing some kind of social insensitivity, and how the society was changing, they were not associated with these kind of aspects. As we can see that in the recent times, there is a lot of focus in terms of asking people to come and vote, because what we have seen in the earlier elections, that the people, those who are from the middle classes or upper middle classes, they were not going for electoral processes, they were not going to vote, to cast their vote, because they considered it as a holiday and a waste of time. They had to stand in queues. So these kind of things, and some kind of disassociation was taking place. They were not able to connect themselves with the kind of society which was there in India. So that is why they were being criticized. So what we see is that in Indian middle class, it became more and more cosmopolitan in their approach and aspirations. The kind of things which they had in their mind was they had to purchase the best branded products. They had to go to foreign locations to have their vacations. Their kids, they should go to best of the schools where they can pay huge money. So all these kinds of better lifestyle in terms of brands, in terms of foreign locations, holidays, this in terms of their aspirations, they became quite important. And This was also reflected in 1990s quite often because of the liberalization and as well as the privatization of the economy. And when the United States cultural imports they came to in India, then this Western lifestyle became quite important for these people, those who were associated or those who were the beneficiaries of the reforms which were undertaken during this particular period. What we see is the role of Hindi films in this context is that the Hindi films, they have taken the responsibility of ensuring the dominance of the consumer culture, and how the lifestyle of a hero which is aspired by the lower classes, when they see their heroes, maybe Shah Rukh Khan or Salman or other film heroes like Hrithik, etc., they are driving international big cars, and the kind of watches which they wear, the kind of designer clothes which they are wear. So how they are influenced and how they also aspire to have that kind of lifestyle. And one of the scholars, they have also suggested, as you can see on the screen, that Indian identity is a duality of foreign and indigenous product consumption, and urban India is brushing its teeth with Colgate, which is a foreign brand. It is drinking Coca-Cola, again a foreign brand. And beauty parlors, where women earlier were not going regularly, but now they go quite often, because beauty parlors, they have mushroomed in large numbers. And beauty, because the beauty pageant competitions in which in some of the beauty pageant competitions in which Indian women, they became victorious in later 90s and earlier part of the 20th century. Many of the Miss Worlds and Miss Universe, Sushmita Sen or Aishwarya Rai, all these women, they were able to secure these coveted titles. So the concept of beauty through competitions, that was popularized, and the cosmetic industry, it benefited, beauty parlor industry, it benefited, because Indian middle class had a lot of money to spend, and this money could be spent on cosmetics. And this kind of trend can be seen even now, where people, they are aspiring to remain young forever, and a lot of money is being spent in a month on the beauty products, and the beauty industry itself is worth crores of rupees. Then in the context of brand placement, there were certain examples as well in the Hindi cinema. Chalti Ka Naam Gaadi was a film which was made quite long back. Kishore Kumar and Ashok Kumar, they were the protagonists of this film, and this film also promoted Coca-Cola at that time. And in a film which was made by Raj Kapoor with the title of Bobby in 1973, Enfield motorcycle was shown in that film, which was Rajdoot. Enfield, which was Rajdoot was a brand, and Enfield was the manufacturer who made this bike. And we do not know whether Raj Kapoor got some kind of money for this kind of in placement of this particular brand. But what we see is that this kind of brand placement in films was there at that time. There were certain other examples as well. If you see that Subhash Ghai produced a blockbuster called Tal, and it has a very romantic scene in which Aishwarya Rai and Akshay Khanna, they are sharing a bottle of Coke, and this scene became quite popular. So what we see is that these kind of advertisements in the films, in that sense, they have a lot of repeat value, and they are quite popular with the audience as well. And at the same time, advertisers, the people, those who are investing their money in the advertisements, they also have some kind of repeat value, in that sense that without having to pay again and again, their advertisements, they will be exhibited in the film. There was American beer company called Straw. So Straw, there's a scene in a film called DDLJ, Dulwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, in which Shah Rukh Khan is asking for a particular kind of brand called Straw, and it was a 50-second scene. So it can be seen in terms of an advertisement where it is reported that Straw as a company made some kind of money payment Yash Raj banner so that they can place this brand in their film. Suraj Barjatia's another film called Hum Saath Saath Hain, in which it was suggested that Coke presents Hum Saath Saath Hain. So Hum Saath Saath Hain became quite popular, and at the same time the film was presented by a company which was dealing with a cola brand. So all these kind of associations of film brand of various manufacturing companies with the film was was rampant during the 90s and thereafter. And we can see that other brands, they also got associated with these films like Reebok, Adidas, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Levi's. All these brands, they were exhibited in some or the other film in recent times. And the coming of the cable television and DTH, they also revolutionized the communication technology, that these films are time and again shown on the television. And at the same time the advertising industry and the brand placement, and how these brand placements, they are done in the television serials as well. And the new consumption patterns, how these new consumption patterns and defined and redefined, and they became some sort of bandwagons in that context. And what we see is that these kind of films which are dealing with brand placements, they were made for the NRI audience and the resident non-Indian audience as well. NRI audience is that audience which is not living in India, and there is, if we try to, it's some sort of a satire, that resident non-Indians, the people those who are living in India but their mindset is not like Indians. So they are the resident non-Indians in that sense, and the arrival of films like Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham, etc. They were so glossy. The theme of the film, the treatment of the film, they were like that they were trying to appeal to the Western audience as well. The Western audience in the sense that the Indian audience which was living in the Western world, the people of Indian origin, the Indian diaspora which was living across the world. At the same time, what we see is the number of technical advancements, they were also made with the coming of so much finance during this particular period. Films like Koi Mil Gaya, Krish, Andiran, Ravan, Krish 3, all these kind of films which were made during this particular period, what we see is that a number of technical advancements with the arrival of the technology during this particular period, using of a number of technicians, those who were associated with the foreign film industries, foreign film industry in the sense Hollywood or the developed film industry across the world. They also collaborated with the Indian filmmakers in terms of polishing their craft. So that way it became an important feature, and these foreign technicians, those who were associated with Hollywood, they came to associate themselves with the Hindi cinema. In the context of direct to home DTH, what we see is that more film based programs were there on TV. Nowadays not only Antakshari, which is related with the film songs, there are a number of quiz programs which are based on TV, which are based on films. There are a number of dance programs which are based on film songs and film dances. So all these programs, many of the reality shows in which film stars, they are the anchors of the show. So all these diversified programs, they have film as base of their programs, and their emphasis is mostly on the markets. They are trying to capture the stars, they are trying to capture the fashion, they are covering the events which are associated with health. So all these issues, they are shown on the DTH, and the multiplication of various TV channels, that on DTH we don't even know that how many channels. There are more than 1,000 channels which are at the disposal, and you can have more if you want to pay more. So this kind of consumption patterns, they are also led by these kind of changes in the technology, and these channels, they try to project issues which are associated with sensationalism, because many of the news channels, they are also competing for TRPs, so that more and more people, they watch their programs, and many of the times in the competition for TRPs, they cross their limits as well. So there is too much focus on the glamour and the lifestyle, and too much focus, so that more and more people, they are able to view the programs, their programs, and their TRPs, they increase. In the context of the filmmakers, those who are making films, those who are of Indian origin, but they are making films not in India but abroad. For example, filmmakers like Gurinder Chadha, who made a film called Bride and Prejudice, and Meera Nair, Monsoon Wedding. So these people, both of them, these filmmakers, they don't live in India, but they are making films which are in English and which are based on Indian practices, or which are trying to reflect Indian society. And when these kind of independent filmmakers, they are funded by the foreign filmmakers, so they are trying to project the Indian society from a different perspective. Another important filmmaker is Deepa Mehta in this context, who has made 3 films, Fire, Earth and Water. So it is some sort of a trilogy of Deepa Mehta, in which Earth was based on the partition, 1947 Earth, and then Fire was based on the issue of lesbianism in India, and then Water, which was based Fire was on the gender issues as well, and Water, which was based on the position of the widows in Banaras. So all these films, they brought some kind of a new approach in the context of certain things, on certain themes which were considered to be taboos in Indian society. So some kind of fresh aspects they were talked about in these films. What we see is that many of the films which are exhibited abroad, these films, they are subtitled in US, UK and other countries, and many of the Western public relation firms, they are doing publicity for these films. Newspapers like New York Times and the Washington Post, they are writing reviews for these films, and various multiplexes in New York, San Francisco, Toronto, they are routinely premiering these kind of Hindi films, so that the people of Indian diaspora, they come and they watch these films. So what we have seen in the recent times is the films like Dhoom 3, films like PK, films like Special 26, films like Kahani, they were released simultaneously in India as well as in Europe. So Europe and other parts of the world. So what we see is that simultaneous release of films is taking place. Earlier what used to happen was that Indian films, they were first released in India, Hindi cinema, and thereafter, after a few months or after some time, they were being released in other parts of the world. But what is happening now is that they are simultaneously being released, and at times they are being released early as well, that they are being released before they are being released in India, because they are trying to capture that market as well. So these kind of changes, they are also taking place. In the context of globalization, also I would like to talk about the collaboration which is taking place between the Indian filmmakers, music directors, etc., and the other filmmakers and the people, those who are associated with the film industry in foreign countries as well. A.R. Rahman composed and collaborated with the Pussycat Dolls for the hit song Jai Ho, which was there in the film, British film called Slumdog Millionaire, which became quite popular, though it was also criticized on the ground that it was trying to project the Indian poverty. And Satyajit Ray was also criticized in 1950 when he made Pather Panchali, that he was trying to encash on the Indian poverty. But the issue is that these kind of films, they are trying, because in India, if you have some kind of affluence which has come up in 1990s, but at the same time there is so much disparity that you can also see so many people, those who are living in shelters, the people, those who are very poor. So these kind of distinctions are there in the Indian society, and this film Slumdog Millionaire tried to capture that. And then Rasool Pukutti, he also was enrobed to mix the sound in this film called Slumdog Millionaire. And a number of filmmakers, those who are coming to India as well from abroad, they are also associated with a film studio called Ramoji Film Studio, which is based in Hyderabad. And it is argued about that studio that there are so many facilities which are available in that studio, that if you come with a bound script in your hand, and if you want to go, you can go with the film itself, because all the facilities are available. So you can shoot the entire film in that film studio itself. And in Ra1 and Kish 3, there was a lot of technical collaboration with the technicians, those who have already worked for the Hollywood film industry. And what we see is that some of the international artists, as you can see on the screen, that a number of international film artists, they have worked for Indian films as well. Stunt coordinator Danny Pierce, who has worked for a very popular film called The Pirates of the Caribbean. He has also worked for an Indian film, Kites. Then hip hop artist Snoop Dogg, he has collaborated in a film named Sing is King. And the other film studios also, those who have collaborated with Indian films like Antheron, they have collaborated, and they have also worked on animatronics, in which they are making animations. So all these kind of changes which are taking place, because of which the quality of the film, the appearance of the film has also improved significantly. Then there is another important aspect which has been discussed and debated recently, is the issue of Bollywood. Bollywood is a term which has been used by many people, but whether Hindi cinema can be called as Bollywood has been debated by others as well. And they say it is a misnomer, because Bollywood is a term which is used to refer to the Hindi language film industry, which is based in Bombay or Mumbai. And the term was coined by combining Bombay and Hollywood. Hollywood is the center of the American film industry. So there is a debate on the term. There are people, those who are supporters of this term, those who say that Hindi films can be called Bollywood, and it has become quite popular also, and it is easier also for the people to say, rather to say Hindi film industry, they can refer to the films as Bollywood films. But there are critics, those who say that Indian films, they are not in any way inspired by the films which are made in USA. In 1920s and 30s, some of the films, they were being inspired by the American musicals. So Rajyadhyaksha is one film historian who has talked about this aspect, and he has said the Bollywoodization of the Indian cinema, in which the Bollywood cultural industry is to be viewed as separate and distinctive from the real film production. He writes, Bollywood is not the Indian film industry or not the film industry alone, but it might be best seen as a more diffuse social conglomeration involving a range of distribution and consumption activities, from websites to music cassettes, from cable to radio, from New Delhi to New York. So what we see is that Rajyadhyaksha has tried to define Bollywood in this context, that it is a more diffused kind of culture conglomeration, and it is involving a lot of range of distribution and consumption activities. So a lot of activities which are associated with film, but they are not the direct part of film, but they are some sort of a byproduct of film industry, like music cassettes, cable television, or radio broadcasting, all these kind of things in which films are associated. So this is how he tries to explain this term. But in my viewpoint, I would like to say that that it is indeed a misnomer in this context. Then the films nowadays, what we see is that they are focusing on different issues. Dyslexia, for example, there was a film called Tare Zameen Par, which is talking about dyslexia, with which many people were not aware. Do Duni Char was a film with which families' aspiration to move up financially was reflected in this cinema. There was another film with the title of Life in a Metro, which is showing the solitude of people living in metropolitan cities, which we can also see that the people, those who are living in metropolitan cities, they are living in such kind of culture, the distances are so much that they are not able to visit their relatives and friends quite often, and they are living there, leading their own lives. They are living those lives which are in a way secluded sometimes. They are not able to relate with the society in which they are living, and in a way these kind of because they do not have access to so many things, because metropolitan lives has so many facilities, but many people, they do not have access to all those kind of facilities, and in a way their aspirations, they get strangulated. So this kind of depression, this kind of solitude which comes in terms of dissatisfaction which is associated in the context of unfulfillment of their aspirations can be seen in many recent films. The film Khwahish, which discusses the issue of euthanasia, that is when a person wants that he should be killed, some sort of a suicide in that way, when a person desires, or the person, those who are associated or those who are related to the person who is ill, that they want to they want that the person should die in that way. So euthanasia is not allowed in India. So these kind of issues, they are discussed in some of the films. Progeria is a disease in which a person who is born rapidly in a way grows in that sense, and Pa was the film in which Amitabh Bachchan was shown, and within a few years he became an old man. So the chronological age was not more, but the physical age grew comparatively faster, grows comparatively faster in this disease. So all these kind of issues with which Indian masses, they were not earlier aware. So people became aware about these issues through these films. At the same time, what we see is that film scripts, they are accorded more significance, they are given more importance nowadays, and they are not only talking about songs and dances, but these film scripts, they are trying to interest people so that they are written with such kind of conviction, they are written, they are not copied generally in that way. So there is some kind of originality which is associated with the film scripts. I have already earlier talked about Kahani, Special 26, Stanley Ka Dabba, Barfi, Pa, Heather. These are some of the films which have come recently, and all these films they have come with a different script and with a different kind of treatment, and they have been well received by the audience also, because the mindset of the audience has also changed in the recent times. Now I would like to talk about the changes in functioning. For example, the coming of corporatism in cinema, as I have already talked about, the coming of various big banners like Yash Raj, which came, and how they are making films, 3 to 4 films every year, which are very target specific. They are catering to a particular audience. Films like Hum Tum and Dhoom 2, which were made in 2004 and 2006 respectively, and how they are also having their own music brands, their own music companies, then their home video brands, and they are creating a huge and high technical supported studios as well. Yash Raj has a very big studio in which Filmfare Awards, most of the times they are being organized there only. So what we see is that these companies, those who have a lot of money, they have big sound studios, they have big film studios, so that they can earn more money during this particular period. Then what we see is another big company which came is the UTV Motion Pictures, and UTV Motion Pictures, they were also focusing on different storylines during this particular period, and because of this a number of films like A Wednesday, Amir, Oye Lucky Lucky Oye, Fashion, Devdi, Kamine, Udan, all these films with a different kind of storyline and uniqueness in terms of treatment, they also came. And Karan Johar, who was earlier himself making films, is now making films with Dharma Productions, and he is also promoting some of the newcomers. Big Pictures, another big company which has come, which is also promoting all these kind of films like Jodha Akbar, Rock On, etc. they have promoted, and some other companies which you can see on the screen, Shri Ashtavinayak, as well as Eros International, Red Chilies International, Studio 18, etc. So all these kind of big studios, they have come up during this particular period, and with the coming of all these big studios, what we see is that they have this kind of money, that they are able to invest that kind of money in 5 to 10 films simultaneously, and when they are investing this kind of money, 5 to 10 films simultaneously, they are able to produce a number of films with different budgets, and because of which they are using a number of newcomers as well, new directors, new film stars, new cast, and because of which fresh talent is also coming to Hindi cinema, and a song which was a prerequisite in earlier times now is not a prerequisite. In many of the films you will not find many songs. Directors, they don't have to compromise now, and I can talk about a film called My Name is Khan, which was released with 100 prints in Russia. So what you see is that in many countries film prints, they are also increasing, so that the proliferation of these films in different parts of across the world also take place. One important aspect I would like to talk about is the portrayal of women in 1990s. What we see is that women, they are now shown in many of the women centric films. They have also been made during this particular period, because what we see is that the Indian society is comparatively patriarchal in nature, and the portrayal of heroines has been generally some sort of as a decorative motif in cinema. So how many films in recent times have been made which are women centric? For example, Kahani was one, and there are others as well which have been made recently, in which film heroines, they are shown in a comparatively stellar role, like Chandni Bar, etc. Some of the films I would like to talk about is Corporate Fashion Kahani Chandni Bar, in which women are career oriented and independent minded. So there is a debate in which globalization and Bollywood. S.R. Bald, he says that Indian cinema and globalization of Indian imagination. He argues that post globalization, the imagined locations where the lovers appear together as they sing and dance are no longer confined to India. They include London, New York, Swiss Alps, etc. So Indian imagination is being globalized. Songs, they are being shot abroad, with global being a euphemism for the West. So he uses, S.R. Bald uses the insights provided by the Indian cinema to argue that globalization is surprisingly akin to neocolonialism. So this is what we see which is happening in Indian cinema. So we have discussed all these aspects. We have discussed the kind of consequences which they have brought about. So I would like to end my discussion at this point of time, and thank you so much. I enjoyed.
Thank you so much, sir, and thank you friends for watching. Have a great day.